Okay, I didn't realize it was going. Okay, I'm having some issues with my camera right now. Um, so, first I'm going to give you a few updates about what's going on over here. My birthday is coming up this month, well, week and a half? 2 weeks? About 2 weeks. And my family is going to come over around the 11th and stay probably till maybe the 18th or even till the 20th. So I'm probably not going to be around very much during that period of time. So that week, there's probably not going to be any videos coming up for you. That's just because I'm going to have a lot of people around here and I just need some space and quiet when I do these videos. And really none of my family really knows as far as my spiritual path goes, what I'm up to. So they might not be too happy to find out that I'm doing videos on YouTube about these particular topics that I'm covering on this channel. So there's that. So I'm probably not going to be around very much. And then I have a writing challenge that I'm doing for a pagan publishing company. The challenge is of a short story or novella that has to be at least 10,000 words long, I think up to 50,000 words long. And that is the deadline for that is the 3rd of September. So I have a little bit less than a month to get at least 10,000 words together of a story. It'll probably end up being between 15 and 25,000 words. That's about, I think that's about how many words how much space I'm going to need to make this particular story. And the requirements are pretty open-ended, but it does have to be winter solstice themed. So I'm thinking of doing something that is kind of like magical realism around the winter solstice theme. And the minimum limit is 10,000 words, and I believe the upper limit is 50. So it's either a short novel or a short story. And hopefully that I will get that done, but I might not, I might be busy and not around very much online doing this particular challenge. So just so that everybody knows, I'm not going to like disappear off the face of the earth, but I just might not be around very much. Okay, so I'm going to start talking about Tinkerbell in this video. Tinkerbell, as the particular character, Tinkerbell, was created by J.M. Barrie in, I want to say, 1908, very early 1900s, as part of a stage play called The Adventures of Wendy and Peter Pan, or just Wendy and Peter Pan, which was later changed to just Peter Pan. And there are a lot of attributes that Tinkerbell has in the book that don't really translate very well to the movie adaptations. The movie with Jeremy Sumpter called Peter Pan probably has one of the better depictions of Tinkerbell's kind of whole attitude and demeanor and what she's kind of like. She's very feisty. She has very quick reactions to emotional stimuli. She pretty much immediately recognizes Wendy as kind of a rival to her. And if you all have seen the movie or read the book, she does try to have Wendy killed. So she's not always all love and light and faith, trust, and pixie dust. She does have a temper, which most pixies, which she is said to be, absolutely have quick tempers. Um, Now, the one thing that I've found about um, different kinds of pixies is that they are are said to be very very tiny. Um, Sometimes they only appear as sparkly lights, but most of the time they're like little people that are just small. Um, and they do, and they are said to have a kind of childlike presence. They have childlike voices. Um, I believe there are some stories in which they do sort of have a tinkly sound, like they wear bells on their clothes sometimes, really tiny bells on their clothes, and um, they kind of make music, and sometimes they are accompanied um, or preceded by different kinds of music. Flutes are especially common to hear when they're around. Um, they are extremely mischievous. Uh, Cornish pixies, particularly, are said to be um, outright dangerous sometimes. And if you saw Peter Pan with Jeremy Sumter, um, that Tinkerbell that can grab a girl by the hair and basically drag her across a room, that's kind of what we're talking about here. Um, the pixies are small, but they are very strong and can be very dangerous if you really annoy them or tick them off, and they are very quick to get angry. Like Tinkerbell tends to be quick to get angry if you offend her. Um, Now there's this whole idea that J.M. Barrie had that because they're so small that they can only have one emotion at one time and express one emotion. So when they're angry, they're just completely angry, or when they're happy, they're just completely happy. Now that, I believe, is completely of his creation, completely his interpretation of what is going on uh, when one of the pixies becomes very quickly angry. Um, Now, sometimes the pixies are associated with the ancestral dead. So um, there is this idea that they are the diminished spirits of the long ago pagan dead. So they're not very happy with humans. um, they like their own company. They sing and dance, and they make fairy paths. Um, if you go outside and you see an area of grass that looks particularly dark and like in a straight line, or an area that is kind of sparse and it looks like it's going in a straight line, it's possible in that case that human beings have been trailing this area and making basically a natural path. But with the dark patch of grass that goes like in a straight line that looks like a path, that is said to be a fairy path. So if you see dark lines of grass that go into a particular area, you are advised not to walk on those paths. The pixies and the other fair folk just in general do not appreciate human beings walking those paths. Those are particularly for the fair folk and their journeys um, when they are out from going from place to place. You don't want to step on those natural made paths. The ones that are cleared away where you can tell that the grass has been um, downtrodden and it's kind of that kind of path where it's a dirt path, that's okay. Uh, but the green straight lines of path, you don't want to step on those. Okay, and as far as descriptions go, there are a wide variety of descriptions of these pixie little people. Um, some say that they have red caps or red hair. Um, in the Victorian age, they were said to have pointed ears and kind of like eyes that turn up. Not exactly sure how to describe it. Um, or there's red hair or a red cap. Sometimes they wear green or blue clothing. These are pretty much universal colors for the fair folk. Um, what else? They are said to be very childlike and have childlike voices, and they are pranksterish. They like to play practical jokes like some small children do. And even Tinkerbell is associated with small children. J.M. Barrie said, I believe, that every time a baby laughs for the first time that a fairy is born. That, I think, is a kind of version of the idea that um, when one of the fair folk die in the other world, they are born into this world, or when we die to this world, we are born um, again in the other world. I think there's that kind of connection there between. It's just trying to make a connection between the other world and this world by saying every time something particular happens here, then something else happens over there. Um, and I kind of like that idea, but it's not a traditional one specifically that the fair folk are born when a baby laughs. Um, but it is kind of a traditional idea that a small child is closer to the other world than someone who is an adult. And then also the very elderly are closer to the other world, obviously, than someone who is a young adult or middle-aged adult. But yeah, there is a strong connection between children and the fair folk. Now, what did I want to say? Okay, we all know that Tinkerbell is a tinker fairy. Um, and I did find something about piskies that I thought was very interesting, that fairy dust is the result of them working with metals. And I'm assuming that would be copper, because the nature of fairy dust seems to me very coppery. Um, when they're working, there's those sparks that are set off when you're working with any kind of metal, hot metal. Sparks start flying. Um, all those little sparks are said to be what creates fairy dust. So um, the pixies are tinkerers, just in general. They they work with different kinds of metals and create things. And they work so feverishly that they send off all these kinds of sparks, and that's what fairy dust is. I found that really, really interesting, that there was a place for fairy dust in long standing traditions, instead of you just this one that's only about 100 years old. Um, so there's also the idea of lost items being found by the fair folk. Um, if you've worked with them for any length of time, they might be presenting you with little tokens, gifts. Those are sometimes said to be the leftovers from somebody else. So if somebody drops something um, let me think, something shiny, like maybe a small crystal. If somebody drops one, they may pick it up, and you may be the beneficiary of someone having lost uh, some of their items. They will also take stuff sometimes from your neighbors. Yeah, there are stories about the fair folk having uh, borrowed um, different items from different people and just kind of like switching them around. So taking one thing from one person, giving it to another, and then taking something from the person who's been given something and then giving it back to another person. Um, their ideas about ownership can be kind of loose, um, but that's only as far as humans are concerned. Their things are their things, and if you mess with their things, they will not be happy. You can have some serious problems. But they will borrow your things. Generally, at least in my experience, your things get returned. Um, but if you leave things discarded, if it looks like you're not using something anymore, um, if you drop something, uh, one of the fair folk may pick it up and it may become a gift to someone else. And Tinkerbell and other of the fair folk in the J.M. Barrie story, Peter Pan and Wendy, or Wendy and Peter Pan, um, find lost children. And there's something of a changeling type situation going on here, uh, where the fair folk take lost boys and send them to Neverland, or what we might call the other world. Um, so yeah, I believe he said, J.M. Barrie said that the the family has like a week, 7 days, something like that, to find the child before the child is taken away to the other world. Now, this might be a very um, cathartic way of looking at having lost a child, because losing a small baby, I believe, would be just, I can't even, it would be horrible. Like, just understatement, just completely horrible to lose a small child. And so this idea that they are taken away by the fair folk um, might be just one of an attempt at comfort and catharsis, just to feel that the child is safe somewhere. Um, Also, the other world of the fair folk is very closely connected with the underworld of the dead. So there is that implication that these small children may have died and then been sent to the other world. Um, when you read the book, it gets kind of serious. It's not, um, of course, for a child, they're not going to be necessarily thinking about such things. But if you look carefully and you examine this text as an adult, you can see that there is a strong um, message to be said about death in the book, and also in particularly the movie with Jeremy Sumpter, the um, the actor's adaptation, the one with, the one that's not animated, um, that death would just be another great adventure. Um, and the very small of the fair folk, um, the pixies, and also the will-o'-the-wisp is associated with the dead, oftentimes associated with the dead. And I will start talking about that in another video, probably, if not tonight. I probably won't be able to finish it tonight, but if not tonight, then Thursday. Okay? So that's going to be the end of this one. I know I didn't say a whole lot that I wanted to say. Um, and I'm going to move from um, the pixies to the will-o'-the-wisp and the moss people and some of the other very small fair folk. I'm going to talk about flower fairies, and I believe that I said that um, Thumbelina seems to me to be one of the flower fairies or flower folk, um, just because she did spring up out of a magical flower, so it makes sense to me that she is one of those. And she might even be considered a fair queen, because she does marry a fairy prince, and Hans Christian Andersen did call her Maya, M-A-I-A, and that is a nymph or a devalued goddess. So I think I would consider her a fairy queen, Tinkerbell. And I wanted to say about tulips, but now I've lost my notes as to all those uh, different symbols that I wanted to discuss about the beetle and the frog and the sparrow and the robin. And so I'm going to wait till the next video. I'm sorry. I did intend to tell you what all of those things meant from Thumbelina, the story. I just can't find those notes, and I don't know off the top of my head. So that's it for now. All stars shine on your paths, and yeah, bye.